Hello, my name is Brandon Sheldon,
And I'm Nolan Eldridge.
and this is Rookie Season. We are amateur hunters and fishermen who are looking to share our journey of learning the sports. We live in the beautiful state of Maine, and we invite you to join us while we get better at hunting and fishing. We talk about bow, rifle, and black powder hunting, and the different aspects that go into those practices, such as tracking in the snow. We also talk about open water fishing and ice fishing.
Be sure to check out our YouTube and social medias to see photos and videos of what we're discussing on the podcast. There's tons of pro outdoorsmen across the country, and we wanted to share the amateur or rookie point of view of the sport, where we will make lots of mistakes and have to overcome many challenges to get the job done. Maine is notorious for its difficult hunting and low deer density, so we have many challenges ahead of us. Now, let's get into the episode. We're hot. We're live.
We're live. All right. Hello. Welcome back to Rookie Season. My name's Brandon.
I'm Nolan.
And we're going to try to work on... We got a few things that we wanted to talk about today. I had suggested talking about this coming week. This is the last week of rifle season for us before we get into like black powder. And there's only 2 weeks of black powder. Essentially 2 weeks. It's up until like December 15th, I believe is the date that it ends.
Yeah.
But this is kind of like for most people, this is the last week to get, your chance to tag out if you haven't already. And Nolan just got back from hunting camp the other day. I know he had some things he wanted to talk about, so I was going to let him kick this off with his most recent stories.
Yeah, so I ran down to Zone 15, and that was my uncle's camp that I grew up hunting at. And I've actually never shot a deer out of there, but I kind of had some low hopes. But I've been told, because people were already up there, that there were a lot of deer kicking around this year. So I went down, and I didn't get there till like 2 in the afternoon. So I figure, hey, I remember this spot where I jumped a deer 2 years ago. That was the last time I was out there. Why don't I just go out there with the saddle stand? And it was it's my favorite spot that I've ever hunted for no other reason than I think I was doing the math out like 21, 22 years old. Mm-hmm. And we had gone there on a whim 2 years ago, and my dad brought the four-wheeler in, dropped me off, and he said, go find a spot.
Yeah.
And like I had shot deer already before, but it was like I went out on public land that I knew that there were deer out there. All the old timers were like, oh yeah, a bunch of deer in this spot. Or I went on power lines, and there's always deer on power lines.
Yeah.
And so this time he drops me off the wheeler, and I kind of walk around a little bit, find a game trail, follow that, and then I get into some muddy spots, see some deer tracks and everything, follow all those into this swamp. And I'm looking around, there's like 5 or 6 of these game trails that converge into this swamp. And I'm thinking to myself, why the hell would I ever hunt here? Because I've only got like 30, 40 feet of shooting, when just on the other side of this thick stuff, it's a wide open valley. I should sit there for the big shots. No, you know what? All those trails converge here. Let's try here. And I sat there for 30, 40 minutes. I have a doe pop its head through the bushes. And the thing's like 30 feet from me. Mm-hmm. And I leaned forward to aim my gun, and because I was sitting in a cheap Walmart chair, I leaned forward to put my elbow on my knee as a rest to aim my rifle, and the chair just creak.
Yeah.
And that deer heard that, took off.
Yeah.
But that was one of the most fulfilling hunts I ever had, because I was like, holy crap, I might kind of know what I'm doing. I just found this spot on my own, and I saw a deer.
Yeah.
So I figure I've got that spot saved in my GPS now. Fast forward back to today, I'll run out there and sit the same exact spot, except this time I'll put my saddle in the tree that I was leaning up against 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And by the time I get set up, there's an hour of daylight left. Mm-hmm. And of legal light left, I should say. And I was in a bad mood. I didn't think I was going to see anything. Trees unprepped, so I'm having to saw branches, break branches to get up in there. I had to crawl through branches of another tree to get up.
Was there no other tree like right nearby that you could escape?
That was it.
That was the only one. Yeah.
That windstorm in December knocked down a lot of them.
Yeah.
So this was the only tree healthy enough, and it was a pretty big tree that, trying to throw the rope
Yeah.
of my sticks around it because I can't reach my arms all the way around. It was a pain to get up.
Yeah.
So I finally get up, I get set, and I'm sitting, and I hear some leaves crunching, and I had my deer call with me. And so I threw I want to say a deer bleat or a doe bleat at it, and it scampers off, and I'm like, well, that was the wrong thing to do. My thought process originally was, if it's a buck, it'll come in. If it's a doe, it should have no effect. I might be wrong. I
really don't have much experience with calls. I haven't had any like a deer sit in front of me long enough to try calls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I don't ever hunt power lines, and I honestly it's my own stubbornness of not that I don't think hunting power lines is cheating, but it is almost like I get why people do it, but I just want to put the work in. And I want to just hunt these things down.
Yeah.
And that's the only reason why I don't. But if I sat in a power line and had a deer out there, I would love to do some different callings, different calls just to see how they do interact.
Right.
So I have no actual personal input on how they react to calls.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever a moment that I can look back on and say, because of this call, this happened.
Right.
The power lines I just hunted because it was my first time by myself in Maine. I'm like, well, can't get lost on a highway.
Right. Well, exactly. No, for sure. There's a lot of good. I get why people do hunt power lines. It makes sense.
So that scampers off, and I kind of think to myself, well, I'm 3 weeks into the season. There's a lot of pressure on this public land. So, maybe that deer's sitting there thinking, hey, I've seen this one before, if it was a deer.
Right.
I never got eyes on it. And now we'll fast forward to 15 minutes left of legal light. And just way the heck out, I can hear, it sounds like deer.
Yeah.
And the only reason I was so confident it was deer is one thing I've noticed, at sunset, all the squirrels go up into their nest, and they're done making noise.
That's fair.
So I'm like, that's got to be a deer. All the squirrels are gone because I'm not seeing any squirrels anymore, right? And so then I'm like, you know what? I need this thing to come in now while I can still legally shoot it. Hail Mary, throw the call at it.
Yeah.
And
I don't think that's something when it comes to blind calling. I
Yeah.
can justify blind calling that way. You think you hear something, you have a fairly good idea what it is and where it is, and you're trying to reach out to it. Just give it a little call, see if you can't entice it.
Right. I was told later on that my doe bleat, because I've got one of those extinguishers with the slide. That's the brand. It's
Okay.
the extinguisher.
I don't actually have I have just a can and a grunt tube.
Gotcha.
That's I have the cheap ones that you get too.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's got a slide on it, so you can slide it all the way up to fawn or all the way down to mature buck, and then there's doe and young buck in between. And so I had it set to doe. One of the guys up there told me that doe was actually too deep and I should have it further up, so I was basically doing doe bleats but in a buck voice. I don't know.
I don't know either, yeah.
But nonetheless, they still kept coming, and there were a couple moments that I'd throw out a bleat and I'd hear them move quicker towards me.
Yeah.
But then they slowed back down. So I'm convinced that it was a buck and doe, and multiple of them, because there were at least 3. I thought I heard 4 different in this area, all crashing around, and they're coming up very close to me, and then it sounds like they're right underneath me. They're this close. And legal light ends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. And so I hang the rifle up and I shoot my dad a text, hey, there's deer right here, man. I can't get down. I don't want to spook them. So I'm gonna be hanging out in my tree stand until they leave, because my dad dropped me off at the spot again, so he's got to pick me up with his truck. And I'm listening to them, and this was just wicked cool, because the best way I can try to describe this, it's a lot easier if I've got like salt shakers I can use to put the positioning of where they all were.
Yeah.
But I'm in my tree, and probably 30, 40 feet in front of me, I hear all these deer crashing around, and they're just, I swear to God, they were chasing each other in small circles right here. And
Well, if it was a buck and a couple does, it makes sense.
Yeah.
If he's trying to figure out which one, maybe is breeding rate down type of deal.
do I go left? Do I go right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like flirting with twins.
Yeah, exactly.
But then all of a sudden they take off and they go like maybe 50, 60 feet to my right. Mm-hmm. And, I just hear the crunch, 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 crunch as they run off, and then they stop. And then way off to my left, I just hear crunch, crunch,
Yeah.
crunch. And the only thing that I can imagine is that's Big Papa coming
Yeah.
in. Because if it was something that they were truly afraid of their life for, then I think they would have just been gone.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have stopped. But that's why I think it was a huge buck coming in, and the smaller bucks are like, he just caught me talking to his girl.
Right. It could be either that, or a lot of times I feel like those bigger bucks will wait for younger deer to move through.
Yeah.
To see if it's safe. They're kind of using them like pawns while they're playing chess, and like, why don't you go run out there first, and I'm gonna wait out here for a minute. You make it through, I'll come through next. Yeah.
And God, the entire time, like that's got to be the biggest buck out of the group at least, and I can't do a thing about it. You know?
No, that sucks.
And I think I ended up spooking them all out of there because my dad didn't have cell service. So he pulls up to the spot, and the guy gets anxious pretty easily. So it's probably 25 minutes after shooting light ended, and I hear him honk the horn.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, come on. I text him like, cut it with the horn crap, dude. Like, there's deer. I didn't realize he had no cell service. He and I have different carriers. And so then I give it like 5 minutes, and then I hear, Nolan.
Yeah, you just hear him
I'm like,
yelling.
oh my God, guy, you're killing me.
Yeah.
And so I start climbing down. I get on the ground real quiet.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to be quiet because they're close to me, and I'm sure they can hear me, but they don't really know what I am.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to rush so that way I can like get to him and shut him the heck up.
Yeah.
And because he's still yelling, and just in my rush, I break a branch, trip and fall.
Yeah.
And they all kind of take off, and I look up, and I can still kind of see because it was a pretty bright moon and clear sky.
Yeah.
And there's just this gap in the thick stuff.
Yeah.
And that big buck walked by, or jogged by. You ever seen Star Wars?
No.
The opening scene of Star Wars, you see Darth Vader's ship, and it comes on screen, and it's just like 30 seconds of this ship nonstop, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's what it was like, just a brown submarine. I saw it walk through, and then it just kept going through. That was at the very least a long deer.
Yeah.
And I was so mad.
Yeah.
I get back to the truck, and I just don't say anything. My dad's like, don't look at me like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what you did, man.
Yeah.
You know what you did.
Yeah.
Because then after I spook all of them, my phone vibrates, and I look, and it's my dad says, oh, just got your text.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Son of a.
I hunted that spot. I ended up moving a little bit just on the other side of that thick stuff.
Yeah.
I could still see back into where I was sitting, and I could see some other areas as well. But those deer never showed up again.
Yeah. No, I mean, you spoke them once. I'm sure they're in the area, but depending on like how far you moved or where they were coming from, or it's hard hunting areas like that where you don't know necessarily where they're going or why they're going there.
Yeah.
And so it's like, if you spook them, I think next time they come through, they're probably going to be like, something was over there the other day. They may have not fully smelt your wind or something like that,
Right.
but they would still know. So they might just swing a little bit wider coming to that area next time until they feel comfortable coming back through.
Yeah, it was an awesome area. It has everything that you and I talk about deer wanting. They want a place that they can eat because there were a bunch of acorns from oaks. They want a place they can drink water. There are ponds right there.
Yeah.
I was 40 feet from a pond.
Yeah.
They want a place they can feel safe. There's some thick stuff, and they want a place that they can breed. And well, certainly there were areas for that too. So
Yeah.
it had it all. I just couldn't make the connection, I guess.
No, and when you sat on the other side the next day, was it? You were there
Yeah.
for 3 days?
Yeah.
You didn't hear anything or see?
So-
you didn't see anything, but you didn't hear anything?
I thought I had one coming in again, and then I don't know if it was a fisher or something. Something started screaming, and whatever was coming in, it didn't run away, but it just had that mentality of, I don't want to even know, and just turned around and walked out.
Yeah.
I mean, it was kind of like I have no idea what the heck it was. It almost sounded like a.
You and your sound effects.
It almost sounded like a crappy coyote call.
Yeah. Huh. I'm not sure what that would be, I suppose.
Yeah.
I mean, I know foxes can make some interesting noises. The other day I went to a hunting spot and someone hit a fox on the side of the road. Or not on the side. Hit it in the road and they hung it in the tree on the side of the road. Yeah. I was like, what the hell? Yeah, that was interesting.
But
So, you were there for 3 days. How was your third day?
third day was just nothing.
Nothing.
There was no wind. It was dead silent. Nothing was moving.
Yeah.
Not even the squirrels.
No doubt. Yeah, I have a hard time understanding how I like to read squirrels. And the only reason why I say read squirrels is you ever sitting there in the woods and a squirrel in the distance starts shooting off?
Yeah.
Well, they're yelling at something.
Right.
So it's like, are they yelling at a deer? Are they yelling at any other animal? Are they yelling at each other? Are they yelling just to yell? Sometimes I think they just do that. But
I mean, I've heard squirrels, chickadees, and blue jays can be your indicator that there's a deer coming.
yeah.
The chickadees, they like one thing I've heard is when they call out, they're saying that they see something, and I'm sure you've heard them. They do the chickadee dee dee. The amount of D's that they do supposedly is a direct correlation to how much of a threat the thing they're calling out is.
Okay.
So if they see you, they might throw out more D's than if they see a deer.
Yeah.
That's according to the Audubon Society.
Yeah. I mean, I could believe it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't.
Audubon's a bunch of bird watchers, so I believe that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I was just trying to think, like, I never sat there and fully listened. Like, sometimes you're sitting in the trees and wildlife's just doing whatever it does around you.
Yeah.
And sometimes the woods is really loud in comparison to what you think it would be.
Right.
But now, like the other day, I was hunting. I had paddled up into a spot, and I hadn't paddled up in there yet. It was literally just a spot It was a spot I saw on the map. And I knew how to get to a certain area to get in the water easy enough, and I didn't think many people were going down in there. And so I paddled up, and there was one spot that I parked. I kept parking the canoe, if you want to say that, docking the canoe, whatever. Because they kept getting up on the banks, just enough to like literally stand on it.
Yeah.
Because you could see where there was like trails coming from the thick swale grass, where all these trees are. They're essentially dead because they're so waterlogged, but they are the trees that somehow manage to grow. They're like tamarack-style trees. Like, they don't get very big. You know, they're always just look dead. Even when I think they're alive, sometimes they just look dead.
Yeah.
But I would get up on the shore to just see if there's any tracks. And the closer I got to where you could see, like, the land was getting drier, because the stream starts in, like, woods, where it's, very high stem count, big pines, big just maples, just regular trees. And then there's just a certain point where it just cuts out of that and it opens up to this, all this swale grass. Essentially, there's a huge area. It's a marsh because everything's wet. I don't think big trees can grow in there because of that.
Yeah.
And right on that transition, so a couple hundred yards before that, I started seeing deer tracks on those trails. I'm assuming they're bedding out in there. The closer I got to that transition where it went from marsh to more dry land, right on the transition, there's a big old rub that I could see. And that's not a lot of evidence for me to hunt a spot.
Yeah.
But the further I paddled up the stream, it was bringing me to another road.
Okay.
And so, and it's a pretty busy road. So I stayed back from that a little ways, and I stayed on that transition because I was like, there's a deer rubbing this, or has rubbed this, so they're cruising through here at some point.
Right.
Deer-like transitions. I think they're bedding on this side. On the other side, I've hunted over there, like across the road, like a half mile to a mile away. I've hunted over there, and there's a lot of browse, but there's no acorns. There's nothing that's like, this would definitely attract them. It's just, deer can eat everything, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that transition line was my best hope, and I sat on that. But we're going back to the chipmunks, or the squirrels, was in the distance, it had been quiet, and you could hear, like, stuff hopping around in dry leaves, which I would assume is squirrels or chipmunks, and then you hear, like, them start yelling.
Right.
And it's like, what are they yelling at? Because they're at a distance.
Right.
And it's like, how much do I want to focus in on the area where I can hear them making noise? Because they could just be freaking making noise to make noise.
Right.
You know? So it's like, I don't want to lose sleep on it, but...
I've definitely seen them, like two squirrels running around each other,
Yeah.
and then they start yelling at each other.
Right. And so it's... But I would like to know, because I've always heard that about blue jays, too, as you mentioned the blue jays. And the last several times I've been hunting, you see blue jays, and I'm like, this is it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Here comes a deer. But I've never seen a deer with them. Another thing, it's a joke, conspiracy theory in a way, is you ever heard of like the balloon theory?
No idea what you're talking about.
So if you're in the woods and you come across a balloon, like a deflated balloon, they're saying that that's a good area for like a thermal hub that deer would also like, because as that balloon deflates,
Right.
the thermals of the area will bring it into that one low spot. So in theory, all the smell, because the thermals will pull it into that spot. This is something that I've heard people talk about.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I mean, I kind of get it, you
Yeah.
know, but I don't know if I would like mark it on my map to be like, I gotta hunt this because I found one balloon. Because I tell you what, I found a bundle of balloons tied together one time. Does that mean there's 4 deer? It's like,
Yeah, I mean, I buy that for a little bit more open area, but I feel like, and I mean, I could be totally wrong with how thick it is and what, like, I feel like you run the chance of there being a completely different thermal wind at the top of the trees where the balloon's coming down versus once you get underneath the trees.
well, and that's why they say, like, when you find them on the ground,
Yeah.
that's that thermal. Because, like you just said, you broke those tree tops, you get in there, and now it's swirling with the new thermal of under the pines or whatever.
Yeah.
I got no idea, man.
Yeah,
I've found a lot of balloons in the woods, and you do find them where it's like, there's a lot of deer tracks around
Never
here.
seen a balloon in the woods.
You've never seen a balloon? I have
Not
found so many.
once.
I think I go deeper in the woods than you do too, though. Sometimes.
Yeah.
I think I do more. I don't know. I've never, I guess, really been hunting with you to see where you would want to go. But like, I know for me, like, I love swamps. I know you
Right.
mentioned that you don't really like diving into swamps.
Yeah.
And I'm always hunting those transition lines, primarily of swamps. I don't know. Maybe it's because I grew up in the bush. I just understand mud better.
You know,
Like,
I think if I didn't duck hunt,
yeah.
then I'd be more apt to hunt swamps. I think I told you about it. The one bad experience I had. I got caught in like quicksand and
Yeah.
up to my chest, and that scared the bejesus out of me. And so
Well,
I'm
around
a little
for most swamps around here, though, it's not quite like that. It's not floating peat moss bogs
Right,
and stuff
right.
like that. So it's like you don't really have to worry about falling through. The most it's gonna suck is you're gonna fall in and lose your boot and to dig it out.
right.
you know?
There's no doubt I got into that situation because I was standing somewhere I shouldn't have been standing.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw the mud hole and I was like, I could walk 4 feet around this, but
Yeah.
I poked it with the paddle, so it should be fine.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yep. No, I don't know. I think there's just a lot of. I feel like I'm just missing something this year.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I guess, I mean, it's not like I shot many deer in my life, but I feel like I've been in these spots lately, this whole year, not lately, but this whole season of hunting. I keep getting in these spots where it's like, there's just hammered with tracks. There's a spot in particular that I'm like, this next week I want to hunt a snot out of one spot.
Yeah.
Instead of me doing like bouncing around to like 3 different spots, I think I'm just gonna hunt the snot out of one of them. Just do different sits in different places, but see if I can't track down where I'm finding them.
Yeah.
And like there's one particular spot you can walk in on a maintained trail that the refugee out here, like, you know, they're the ones that maintain it.
Right.
It's nice and moss basically that you're walking up in on. You've been out here with me.
Okay. Yep.
It's dead silent when you walk up in there. Well, the other day, so if you were to, I'm going to try to explain this so people listening can understand this. If you took your left hand, let's say, and you laid it flat on the table and your thumb's sticking out, that is the finger going into the swamp. Is your whole hand is the finger. On each side of it, it's wet. There's a stream on each side. The tip of this finger is basically facing northwest. And then when you come down where it dishes out where your thumb is, that's the shape of this finger into the swamp. And there's a big bowl in between your pointer finger and your thumb. So on the right side of your hand, if you have it flat on the table right now, I paddled up that stream. Because instead of walking this trail where eventually it gets to like oaks and it's just crunchy, I was like, I'll just paddle up in there and I'll bypass all of that.
Yeah.
I'll leave no smell. I'll be dead silent. Well, I got halfway there and there was a monstrous beaver dam.
Oh.
And it literally, I put the paddle down into the water, and it's like a 5-foot paddle. I never even touched the bottom on the water side of the beaver dam.
Yeah.
And it was right to rocks on the other side. And it was dammed up. I got a picture of it. And so I was like, well,
break the dam and go for a ride.
Right? Well, I was kind of like, well, I'm freaking committed because I got out there early.
Right.
I had someone come in and relieve me from work.
Okay.
And so it was like, I'm here. I'm going to hunt. I'm not going to just, give up. So I left the canoe right there, and I walked up in a ways. So this same place I've hunted several times, and I had a doe crossing me every morning between like 7 and 7:45. This doe was walking down below me when I was in my saddle. So now walking up the stream, because I never saw where that doe went, because she was always walking like quartering to the wind. So I'd sit in the saddle when the wind was northwest to me, and then she would always come from like my west with the wind blowing across in her face, and she would walk down the finger and was always walking back towards almost like the parking lot.
Yeah.
Well, when I walked up the stream, what I realized was, I'm trying to paint this picture appropriately. When I was walking up, my spot that I'd been sitting in would be on my left, and there was just a hammered down trail of just mud, tracks, like just a ton of them.
Yeah.
I'll show you the picture of it, but there's got to be at least 25 different tracks in just this one spot of all different directions.
Yeah.
Well, the stream that's now basically dry, there's still water trickling through it, but like I just walked through it the rest of the way. So I went from it being like over my head most likely to now I'm just walking in a creek bottom.
Right.
So I walked all of that, and you could see where all those where that doe would go past and go out of sight, almost like 100 yards right there. She was crossing the stream. You could see where all the mud would funnel in to one spot where you see they walked into the stream and they were walking up the bank on the other side. So on the other side, it humps back up. Not drastically, but enough where everything's dry.
Yeah.
So when I got to the top of that, there was scrapes, there was rubs like crazy. Well, that's another finger that bumps out into this marsh.
Yeah.
So now you have two fingers in a stream that cuts in between them. And what I'm trying to decide is every time I've gone out there and I've sat in that saddle on the first finger, which would be on the left-hand side, if you're looking at the map.
Yeah.
I know there's deer running there. I've seen a ton of deer out there. I've seen a ton of does out there. Every time I've been out there, I've seen a ton of does. I've seen about 5 or 6 does just on that itself. When you get to the very point of that finger, that's where I was finding rubs. But that was like way out into the swamp, and that's why I wanted to paddle up in there. Because it's literally a little over a mile walk to the end. And so I paddled up in there and cut my distance, not cut my distance in half, but it sped up my journey.
Yeah.
And it was quiet. But now I'm like trying to decide, like, should I walk up in, because there's no point in bringing the canoe now, because I can't get there anyways.
Yeah.
Should I walk up in, go to where I was sitting last, in my saddle, use that to hook it, cross the stream, and then go up to the next finger where I've been finding all the rubs and scrapes? But deer, I don't think, really make rubs and scrapes typically in the middle of the day.
Right.
But there was a lot of there was a lot of sign. It was like a highway. Like all the leaves were all turned over. I found a bed on it that was beat right to the ground. Like it was the shape of a deer to the dirt in all these leaves. So it's getting hammered right now. They're using the snot out of it. So it's like this whole next week, I got it all off. It's Thanksgiving week, got the whole thing off. I was supposed to work Friday. I took a swap, so now I don't work that week. The temperatures are dropping down to like the 30s. Some of them are even like mid-20s that week. So the mornings will be nice and cold. But it's going to be raining off and on. And then Friday, potentially we're getting snow. So I'm trying to decide if I want to go in there. If it's even worth it to sit the spot that I had been sitting, where I keep seeing the doe. Because it's kind of like, rut is kind of ending, I think.
Yeah.
So it's like, should I sit there And maybe, or should I get more aggressive and go deeper somewhere? I could cross the stream where I found all that sign.
Right.
I just don't have high hopes for it, only due to the fact that it's like I don't think they're making that sign during the daytime. And something I have a hard time with is when I get to a spot like that where there's a lot of rubs, scrapes, whatever, and you see all these different trails coming in and out. I'm like, which way do I go?
Right.
And that's something that I have such a hard time with. It's like, I don't know which way I need to make my next approach at. Because I know where there's a ton of acorns. So it's
Yeah.
all right, they're feeding up there. That concept I can get.
Okay.
But it's like, I don't want to just hunt the food. Because I've done that a couple times now. And I haven't seen any bucks there.
Yeah.
Not saying that I won't ever see any bucks there. But I get impatient when it's like I've sat there 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, all right, I haven't seen a buck. I am not in its... I am not in its way of travel at this time of day.
Yeah.
So it's like I either need to go up this way to see if I can find them, or I need to go over here to see if I can find them. But I don't know how to help my decision making of which damn direction am I going in right now. That makes sense?
Yeah, and I mean, I've always felt like hunt food in the
Early season.
evening.
Oh, evening. Okay, yeah.
Because they're getting out of their beds. You wake up in the morning, the first thing you want to do is eat breakfast, and it's kind of the same deal for bucks.
Okay.
So I would imagine that they're getting out of their bed, they want to go eat, and then they want to go chase does. But we went down to that spot, and we decided that based on what we saw for evidence of rubs, that there's some good deer in there, some mature bucks, and I know those mature bucks, they're patient. They wait until it's pretty darn close to dark before they get out of their beds.
Yeah.
So for something like that, if you have an idea as to where they're bedding,
Yeah.
I mean, I know you like hunting, not necessarily in bedding, but close to bedding. I think hunting close to bedding would be a safe bet. And this is where I like calling, or at least the idea of it, is that now you have something that you can try to use to encourage that buck to get out of his bed 5-10 minutes early.
Yeah. I think so. One thing I don't know if it's I don't know if I disagree with what you said, but you're talking about bucks get up and the first thing they want to go to is food. I think bucks bed in the area because deer don't just go like, all right, 12-hour snap right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that they live in an area or bed in the area where they can get up, browse around their bed, and lay back down. So, but obviously they're heading to. That's why acorns get nailed so hard, is because they do like it. So I do believe that at some point they are going in that direction. But I just don't know if it's always their first line of attack. But there's so many what ifs. I think that's what's so hard about it. I don't think you're wrong. You know what I mean? So it's like, so I can't disagree with you. I just don't know. Looking at that location, one, there's a lot of acorns out there.
Yeah.
Almost too much in the sense of what side am I going to sit on that they might be on this side with? That's one of the reasons why I like to find the bedding area and try to hunt between bedding and food.
Yeah.
Is because then I can eliminate trying to pick somewheres on this half-mile stretch of acorns, which ones I want to sit in. If I could find the bedding,
yeah.
Now it's like I'm just waiting for them to try to go to the feeding area, but I'm just going to catch them in between.
Right. I mean, it's another variable to throw into it is I think I've mentioned Pennsylvania University did one of the universities in Pennsylvania did a big study on deer, and they collared 2,000-3,000 bucks, a stupid amount of deer. Okay. And one of the things that they found is every buck has a different personality.
No, I believe it.
And so none of them had just one bed, but some of the bucks had 4 to 5 beds, and some of the bucks had I don't even know the number, but stupid amounts of them. And the only consistency that they found is the bucks seemed to be on a 4-day cycle of they'd hang out in one spot for 4 days, move to another spot for 4 days.
Well, I think their bedding is predicted off of wind sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's areas where it's not wind-based, but I think that's why they do have it. Because if you look at the weather here, we've been having a north-northwest wind, and I think it's tomorrow or something. There's a day coming up where we're getting ready to get hit with east winds for a day or two.
Yeah.
And it's So if they're betting in the area where they're expecting wind from one direction all the time, and now all of a sudden the wind's coming from the east, that would completely destroy their betting spot. It's no longer safe because they're not going to be smelling it. Now they would have to be reliant off of like sight and hearing,
Yeah.
Which I'm sure that's why there's so many different beds for them. I'm sure they have all of those.
Yeah.
I think this coming year, not this coming year, this coming part of December, that's coming like after hunting season.
Yep.
To the beginning of the year, I am gonna put some miles on and like just figure out these bedding areas. I'm gonna go through my Onyx app and delete all my old crap out of there.
Yep.
Not like a complete wipeout, but wipe out a lot of the stuff where it's like I have eliminated a lot of bull crap from my scouting last year.
Yep.
This is my first year hunting this area. Last year I scouted it. I moved in right at the end of hunting season. I never got a chance to hunt this location.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even hunt last year, actually, now that I say that. I don't think I went out in the woods last year. That was in medic school, though.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna scout, eliminate a bunch of stuff that I had been going to, because now I know it's not what I need to be doing. It's just a waste of time. And then just do my homework on it. And that way next year it's like I can eliminate a lot of this bull crap.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because like the spots down behind my house, this place I can't hunt behind my house on a northwest wind.
Yeah.
But because of the road that cuts between, that brings me down to the St. Regis Road, like if I go down that and came in, if I have a north wind, basically I'd be coming from the west towards the east. The wind would be taking my smell down below me, towards the south. And so where I know the bedding is, I could creep along that way to get to where the bedding is. But you're talking like a half-mile walk through just a thick woods where it's like you're not hunting in that part. Not not unless they're bedded there somewhere and you jump them and you just send in some Hail Mary slugs through the woods. But it's like there's no way. Like I like hunting with my 308, but man, I'm tempted to buy a pump like 270 at 30-06.
Yeah.
Just because it's just my style. The scope is very nice when I get to the marsh.
Yeah.
But I do so much hunting where I'm only hunting within like 60 yards. It's like I almost don't really need a full scope. If I could just get a pump action, some iron sights or something, or an over-under. I'd prefer an over-under, but that'd be kind of my style of hunting.
Over-under like a shotgun? Or
over-under like the scope where you can look through the bottom and you see iron sights, or you pick your head up like an inch, you can see through an actual scope.
Yep. Now I know what you're talking about.
That way, like when it's like, if I'm trying to do it quick, I can just iron sight it, scope it, you know, if I need to. Because on the marsh, in theory, like, I'm not trying to sit here and shoot at running deer. I'm not someone who wants to do that. If it's a monster buck and he's just kind of at a trot and he's at a distance where I felt like I could take a running shot appropriately, maybe. But if I'm seeing these things at 100+ yards out, I'm not taking a running shot at it because I'm not that much of a marksman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this what I'm trying to figure out for this coming week. I kind of sidetracked there. Is just where am I going to be? Am I going to be in the spot I've been sitting with my saddle? Should I go to the end of that first finger I was talking about where all the oaks are? Should I cross the stream, jump up on top of that next hump into the swamp where it was dry and it was nice? And I sent you a picture of that old rub I found next to my gun.
Yeah.
I mean, there were some big rubs like that in there. So you know it's holding deer.
Right.
And I don't think anybody's hunting that because the stream's usually flooded out, but the beaver just, dammed it up.
Yep.
I'd like to carry... ADD moment again is I want to look for like a 6 to an 8 foot canoe. They sell them, but obviously they're typically just a one person canoe. Because right where I'm talking about my saddle is, I talked about how the beaver dam was, and I had to go up a couple hundred yards. Then I caught up to where essentially where I was hunting that stream in my saddle. It gets deep again right there, and so it's like if I could carry a canoe a half mile up into the woods and throw it in there, I could paddle right out in that marsh, and it would be perfect for what I'm trying to do right now.
Yeah.
If I could get my canoe where I wanted to be right now, that stream hooks around that second hump, and then it goes up along that first finger. I don't know how to explain it because the stream just zigzags essentially.
Yeah.
But I could bank it into one of those like oxbows and just plop up a chair, and I could watch down the front of this finger where the acorns are. But I could also be back far enough where all the sign is, that if anything was coming out of bedding from behind that, I'd also be able to see that. I'd be sitting at like a 45, and I could see everything.
Yeah.
But I can't get my canoe in there. I got a 14-foot canoe. It's not hard to carry a couple 100 feet, but carrying that bad boy a half mile, still carrying my hunting gear.
Right.
Like, I don't want to do that.
I know it's funny because I consider your canoe tiny, but that's only because I've got a 20-foot canoe that I have to trailer basically.
Well, it isn't a huge canoe. It's perfect for like what I've been doing with it. And even the other day, like when I jumped in the stream, like I had to carry, I think it was like 150, 200 yards. And it wasn't bad. Like I got to where I needed to be. It wasn't bad, you know. It was kind of like the max of what I wanted to do with it.
Right.
I bet you that thing's probably like 80 pounds maybe.
Really?
I guess.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not super heavy, but I'm 165, so it's half my body weight.
Yeah.
Now I'm carrying my hunting gear on top of that. And then it's, again, you're just carrying it through the woods. It kind of sucks.
One of those guide canoes that are like 30 pounds, no seats in it. It's just that crossbar and you kneel. And then even too, you could get those wheels that strap on. I don't know if that'd be too much noise if you'd rather just put it on your back and carry it that way, but that's tough when you got a rifle. And
I would do the wheels for the canoe I have now.
Yep.
I would like to get a smaller canoe, say the 6 to 8 foot canoe, 6 to an 8 foot canoe, because those are lighter. I mean, even they're probably 30 to 40 pounds, let's say.
Yeah.
I can confidently say that I would be able to carry that in there. I mean, think about it. When we're on calls, we're carrying that weight the whole call.
Yeah, good point.
So
for
it's
gear,
like, so it's like, even if I had to just, I mean, it sounds silly, but I have my field is like, I think it's like 300 or 400 yards, something like that. Even if I had to just do some trainings next summer, I'll just carry the canoe around my property.
Yeah.
I know it's silly, but
you got to go real close to your pond so you can simulate getting in the mud. Just do some laps around
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, I know that's silly, but it's like, because to me, that's just the style of hunting I like to do.
Yeah.
I like getting into the thick of it and tracking them down. You know, that's just what I like to do. I want to get in there, track them down, and right now it's like, all right, I got the food. I know the does are, because I see the does every morning. Not every morning, but every time I've been there, I've seen the does. I jumped the does one time when I walked all the way down in there first thing in the morning. I jumped 4 of them. I had saw a deer. I rounded the corner and it was standing broadside and it was the biggest one. I actually think that one may have been a buck.
Yeah.
But it was dark enough where it was like, I couldn't really see it, but I could see the big body of it, and it ran into the woods. And so I walked past that, and there was a transition where it went from pines into the oaks.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'll walk down the transition and I'll hook around because of the way the wind was blowing. And as soon as I crossed around that transition, I walked down like 15 feet. I looked up, and there was just 4 does just standing there staring at me like, what the hell? And then they blistered off, and I was like, well, I just scared everything out of here. That was cool. So anyhow, I know where the does are. I know like the signs of the rubs on the far end, and I know where the rubs are on the like this new spot that I just came across because I couldn't paddle up in there, so I had explored.
Yep.
Just don't know where that buck is. I keep dancing around that buck, and so it's like this next week. I could put in probably 6 hunts.
Yep.
Easily I would say. My wife's gonna kill me probably because I haven't been doing really much of anything around the house, but. I did. Like, that's one of the reasons why I grinded so hard this summer to get the barn built, to plow the field, do all the work around here that I did do. So that way, when this time of the year came, it's like all these massive things are done.
Right. I thought you were just looking for excuses not to go fishing with me all summer.
That too. Absolutely. I didn't want to go with you. But no, it was just like that's one of the reasons why I grinded so hard. I was like, it's funny you mentioned fishing. I absolutely love fishing more than most things. But I've been getting more turned on by hunting the past few years, and I think it's because not in the arrogant sense, but it's like I've gotten pretty good at trout fishing.
Yeah. And
I have my spots where it's like if I want to go catch trout, I will go catch trout, and I know where to go.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and I mean that's where I should go explore more places, but I don't want to drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to go explore new places where it's like now I live right in the thick of the woods in the territory that I like to hunt. I want to hunt. I like scouting.
It also gets into that old saying of whatever you're pursuing, fish, deer, turkey, duck, don't leave blank to find blank.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like, I know there's deer back here. I've seen so many does, and I've been seeing all the signs of bucks. And it's like part of me is like, Maine's like the 5th hardest state in the country to hunt. It's something like that. It ranks up there. Is it the fact that I am just so inexperienced still that I'm not seeing them? Is it the fact that their deer density is simply just that low that I'm not seeing them. But is it, what factor is it? I think it's just that I'm at the time of the year now where it's like the pressure's starting to really hit.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm starting to second guess a lot of stuff. But I've seen a lot of deer.
I mean, I think you and I might be, especially you more than me, I think, because I still make a bunch of silly mistakes. I think we might have plateaued a little bit, or we're at the beginning of a plateau of skill.
Yeah.
Right? Because we know how to find the area. We know how to read, a fair amount of sign. You're definitely better at finding sign than I am. But when I find it, I can read it.
It's just fun for me.
Right. But now, we can pick out an area, and that's the plateau, and then bridging that gap is going to be going from the area to the spot, and to the track, and that's where I think we both struggle a little bit.
That would be what I would say I'm struggling with now. Is I guess simply just that is I know the area, I see all the sign, I have a rough idea where they keep going. Now it's like I think sometimes I overthink it. If I have 5 different trails in one spot, it's like, which trail do I follow? Or which trail do I sit on? Obviously, if all 5 of them are connecting into one spot, you should probably sit on that one spot.
I would.
But, like, when I'm in these spots where it's swamp all around and I'm on a hump that's just dry, it's like, and I've sat there a couple times and I don't see anything. It's like, am I scaring them out of here? Are they on just a different cycle right now? Are they 100 yards just off onto the next island and they've left this one for whatever reason? They only come here at night? Those are the times where it's like I kind of want to put cameras up more. But at the same time, it's like I have all the sign that I need.
Yeah.
I don't really need a camera to verify there's a buck there. I see buck sign, you know what I mean?
And then you have the argument of the camera will scare them out.
Which I do see. I would believe that. I don't think that it's a great idea to, like, let's say if I found a spot. Let's say if I found a scrape.
Yep.
Like, I don't think it's necessarily a great idea to go throw my camera on that scrape right now.
Right. I'd agree with that.
Maybe if I'm just simply trying to see if there's a shooter buck hitting it.
Yeah.
But I think that, like, all the cameras that I have on my property, or had on my property, because now I'm down to 1. Every time they came into that spot, they were looking at my camera. They saw it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so I think they're cognizant of that.
No, they definitely are. Because I threw when I showed you the pictures when we were doing Expanded back in September, I threw a camera out in my spot. And there's a lot of people in there, and what I've heard is they'll go in, take your SD card out, or turn off your camera.
People suck.
Yeah. So I didn't want to throw my $100 Moultrie out there, so I threw a cheap $50 Muddy out there, and that camera clicks. It just
you can hear it.
Yeah, it almost sounds like it's cycling film. I know it's not, but
but it sounds like an old style camera. It's like it has an actual click to it.
Yeah, there's a shutter in there, and every picture I got of bucks, the does didn't really seem to care, but every picture I got of bucks, that deer was staring directly at the camera.
Yeah.
And I never saw them again. Yeah. So I think it was camouflaged well, because I mean I had a hard time finding it, and I put the thing out there, but just the sound, and then they figured it out, and they know that's not right.
Yeah.
And I think if next time I put cameras out, I'll bring my sticks, go up in a tree, and put it in a tree angled down.
I think if you let them soak for a while,
that too.
They don't care. I think when it's new, because they might just not walk in front of it anymore, and they might just walk around it. Because that deer's probably still there, but it's just like, all right, I know over here something keeps clicking at me. You know, and I know what that click is, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to walk around it now.
But I also think they might have, just based on the sheer amount of people that hunt that area, they might have that correlation figured out between hunters and the cameras.
Little box on the tree.
Yeah,
no, for sure. Whereas, like, out here, I bet you I'm crossing deer out here that probably have never seen humans sometimes.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And so I think there's that factor that goes into play with it. I think that if it's an area where maybe they're more used to some things, they're smarter about it. Because, like, out here, I had a doe and that fawn on camera, like, every day. Like, I had to turn my camera, like, pictures off for sometimes because it was just, like, I was getting 40 pictures of these deer because they would just sit there and graze and look at the camera. Like, it was literally just, it was like where that's the beauty of my property getting cut in the last 5 years. I have so much browse on it. Yeah. And that's one of those locations I put that was just, it was behind a bundle of pine trees where 2 roads, like twitch trails from the skidders met. And they walk right up in that. And for whatever reason, they just like that one spot. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it's like a wind benefit. I don't know what it was that they liked about it, but they just ate all the time right there.
Yeah.
And they would you could see them just eat there, chewing their cud, looking at the camera, and just like, what's that thing? But they didn't care. But yeah, you throw it up in a new spot and let it sit. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
I would love to throw a camera up there because if all those deer were coming through at midnight, I know I'm in the wrong spot.
Right.
Because they're not hitting that during daylight. I got to go a couple hundred yards a different direction because they're there in the daylight. They're coming here at night for whatever reason. I think that's what I'm having a hard time with, and now I just feel the pressure because it's like I'm not afraid of doing black powder hunting. I'm just trying to avoid it because I got some things I got to do.
Yeah.
I got to finish some things around here before we have 2 feet of snow on the ground.
I think my plan for the rest of the season, because I still got the food plot. There's still deer coming in. I had that new buck come in, big 6-point, named Love You Long Time.
I know you come up with some interesting names.
But everything is nocturnal, even the does, and I really think that's not going to change until December.
I don't think it's going to change until you're out of there all the time.
So my plan, I think, is actually take a couple shots with the bow, make sure that's fine, and go back to expanded.
Yeah.
Because that area, it's still open. Mm-hmm. It's probably a ghost town right now because everybody's out rifle hunting.
Yeah.
And the only people that are going to be hunting that are someone who realistically shot a deer with the rifle and wants another one. They're going to go in with their expanded tags.
Yeah.
I'm not having the best of luck. I've definitely seen more deer than I did last year, but nothing giving me an inclination of I've got a good chance of seeing a buck during the day. If I had a doe tag, I'd be in the food plot because those does will come in 10 minutes before legal light ends.
I think if that was you, I'd go back and hunt where you jumped that deer the other day with your truck.
I plan on going back in there, but my thought process is, and maybe this is wrong, I jumped him midday. He's going to be in there midday.
Yeah, so get in there in the morning.
Yeah, walk in at legal light type deal.
Yeah, or get there. Obviously, at night, in theory, it would be past the midday point, but
right.
He's comfortable being in there midday for some reason. So you just got to either try to intervene before he gets back into there,
yeah,
or use your wind to your advantage. Like today's a nice, wet, windy day.
Yeah,
you could sneak up in there.
Right.
If you use something that doesn't have a high-powered scope, something that it's like in case he jumps up right in front of you like he did last time.
Right.
Now you know he's there. Like I've been contemplating about going hunting today, and then I just wasn't feeling it. It's just a poor excuse, but that was just kind of it. I just didn't feel like it.
Well, we hunt because it's fun. When it's not fun, there's nothing wrong with taking a break. I do the same thing.
And but today would be a perfect day to go stalk around. Everything's wet. The leaves aren't going to be crunchy. Everything's moving because it's windy.
Well, and I had that same exact thought of this would be a good day to try to sneak up on something. Although now I feel like because it's rainy out and kind of windy, that place that he was bedded was wide open. Yeah. So I would imagine he's not going to bed there. He's going to bed somewhere with cover.
Yeah, no, on a day like today. And that's fair, too. Excuse me. I keep burping. It's the coffee. No, and that's definitely a fair statement as well. And I think that... But I don't think he'd be miles away.
Yeah, no, he definitely wouldn't be. There's so much thick stuff in there. He doesn't have to go far to find a bed undercover.
Yeah. He's like, I know, come Friday, if we wake up and there's, an inch of snow, if that, I don't know how much snow they're predicting. I haven't actually watched the news, and just both of them show, when I Google it, they Google, 5-day forecast, 10-day forecast, whatever, shows a 60% chance, but, the weather app on my phone shows a 30% chance. But there's been so much rain in the predicted future this week, where it's if we're continuing to carry that moisture, then we might get something.
Yeah, right.
And if we do, I know exactly where I'm going to go, and it's not even the spot that I was just talking about. Over here where I saw that 8-point across the road, it's so thick down in there that all I'm going to do is I'm going to walk that road, see where he crossed, and I'm just going to start putting the boots on the ground and track him down if I can.
I know.
I'll probably just go in there with my shotgun and 5 slugs and just light up the world,
Of course, you and I, more me maybe, but we've been sitting here all year kind of crying for snow. We got snow coming. I'm going to be in Vermont for Thanksgiving. So, I don't know. I hope it snows for you, but at the same rate, I don't want to miss out on that either.
Yeah.
I do think and this is a deer behavior thing that I have no idea if this is right or not, but I have heard of like a second rut per se.
Yeah.
And it's lighter, but it's definitely noticeable. And I would imagine because we started out the season wicked cold. I was chipping ice off of my windshield, and then we went into really the past 2 weeks has been pretty warm, 40s, 50s, couple days in the 60s. I think I even went out one day and it was 70. Like I just had blue jeans and a t-shirt on.
Yeah.
So they more use, as far as I know about animals, they more use the weather to know what they should be doing. They don't know it's November, I need to be rutting.
Right.
So I think that we had an early rut and a light rut. And I would imagine now that we're starting to get back down into these freezing temps at night and, mid 30s during the day, I would imagine that they're going to start rutting again. And at least during muzzleloader season and the last bit of expanded archery season, we'll have an opportunity to try to use that to our advantage.
I think a lot of things. I don't know anything about any of them. Really. When it comes to the rut, it's like I talk to some people. Excuse me. I talk to some people and they say like the first light rut that you're talking about is like late October.
Right.
And then you have some people who are like the heavy rut is in November.
Yeah.
But then I've also heard like what you just said is there's a rut in November and then maybe in December when this cold snap comes back again. I don't know if it's so much based off the bucks as it is the does knowing.
Yeah.
Because the does know, it's just genetics and stuff, is they know they need to get pregnant at a certain point to deliver the fawn, to raise it to survive the next winter coming.
Right.
And I think it's more based off of when those does start getting kicked off, being like, I need to do this sooner rather than later because it's getting late for me.
Right.
And then that obviously will start firing the bucks up, which I would agree with you. It's probably based off of weather and also just daylight. I think daylight probably plays a huge factor in it.
Yeah.
I know they're nocturnal animals, but when the days go from, especially up here, when you have some days, in the summer, you like 10, 12 hours of sunlight, and all of a sudden now it's like you're getting 7.
Yeah.
It's like I think they know. It's like plants. So, a lot of like gardening and stuff like that, those plants start, all right, there's less daylight now. I need to start storing my energy. I need to start getting ready because I'm going to go dormant.
Right.
I need to survive.
Fish do the same thing. Fish breed based on water temperature and hours of daylight.
So, I don't know. I know that our weather's been weird because usually we're always freezing out in this time of year. And I know it's been warmer, but I don't know if that affects it in the sense of, we're just not going to rut at all.
Right.
I think that it might just, maybe the activity is lower per se because they get hot easier when it is 60 and they don't want to go run 5 miles because now they're cooking, But I have seen a lot of deer activity this year of rut action. I've actually seen more this year than they ever have, but I'm looking more now this year than they ever have.
Yeah.
When I went hunting with Donovan, those bucks were chasing does all over the place. There was does running everywhere. Those bucks were chasing them. When out here, Zach's parents' house, not too far past it, there's a house lot that's like cleared. They just never built a house in there. I think the house next to it bought it and just owns the land.
Yeah. Strong move.
Yeah, exactly. I don't blame them. When I drove by that the other day, there was one doe and there was a crotch horn and a 6-point buck with them.
Yeah.
And the doe was squatted, and you could see that she was like pissing on her glands on the back hind legs.
Right.
And those bucks were literally, one of them was sitting there smelling it as she was doing it, and the other one was just standing there in front of her. And I think she was starting to go into, and those two were also starting to go in the rut. And I think that they just all met up in that one location.
Yeah.
The university land by Hannaford, I drove by that the other day.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about a week ago or so, maybe even 2 weeks ago. And the same thing, I've just never seen this, and now it's just cool to me to just, in a way, to see it, because now it's like, holy crap, is another doe was squatted, and you could see she was like rubbing her back legs together.
Yeah.
From that distance, I couldn't tell if she was, pissing her legs or not, but I'm assuming she was. And there was a buck that was like 3 feet behind her, smelling the ground.
Yeah.
Not a big buck again, just another, I think he was like a spike or a fork or something like that, but just showing that was warmer weather.
Yeah.
I think those does are like 'tis the season. If I want to make if I want my fawn to survive, that's all they do is eat, sleep, and screw to try to survive.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I think that those does are the ones that kick it off, where they're like, I'm ready at this time period because my mother before me and my mother before that, and blah blah blah, in the doe world, know this is their time frame.
Yeah.
I had that buck that I saw last year when I was building the barn or working in the barn here, and I have 2 does on my property.
Yeah.
I think the does on my property were ready, and that's the reason that big buck came through.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying does definitely make sense. It's probably a little bit of all of the above.
I think so.
I mean, we've been studying deer since we could really hunt them and understood science, and there's still a whole bunch of stuff that we just don't know.
Yeah. I know you have people who are like die hard, like it's the moon phase. You have people who die hard, like it's got to have the cold snap. Die hard, it's like, the does just know, or it's this, or it's that, and I don't know.
That rut that you were talking about that people say is in October. Like my personal opinion, and this is all it is an opinion.
Yeah.
Is that they're not breeding. It's not necessarily the rut, but they're tagging up with the does and they're meeting up so that way they're basically following, and they're just like, any day now it's gonna be go time. So I want to know where this girl is.
Well, I think that I don't think I have an opinion on I don't think they're necessarily rutting in late October myself personally. I think they're doing exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
I think they're sparring to figure out who's macho man of the area.
Yeah.
But I think they are harassing does at that point because they're starting to, like you said, group up, letting them know, like, I'm alpha male, or I'm this, or I'm that, and seeing where their bedding areas are. And then, I think they're doing that. And so but to some people, I think, who might make the statement that they're rutting in early October or late October, might be seeing a lot of that. And because simply it's doe and buck action, they may think that's rut action when really
they're playing the dating game.
Yeah.
Do you want buck 1, 2, or 3?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And then I think that what we've had here the last 2 weeks, I personally would definitely call that the rut.
Yeah.
Just because. They're running around like crazy. You see people are shooting more of them. They're all talking about how they either called them in, or they saw them chasing a doe, or they saw a doe come cruising through, and then the buck was following after when they get them. That's clearly rut activity in my mind. I'm wondering if we're going to start being on the back end of it now, where they've been going hard for 2 weeks. Maybe they rejuvenate there for a minute or two, and then they have another action of just late in the year, another boost of testosterone.
Little pillow talk and a bottle of Gatorade.
Yeah. They're just sitting back having a cigarette, and they're like, I'll be there in a minute. I don't think that's irrational to think either. That's why I think I'm having a hard time with deciding what I want to do with this spot over here, because it's like, this is the longest I've ever, not the longest, this is my longest season, but this is the most I've hunted throughout the whole season.
Yeah.
Where I've bounced through all these different ones. I started in September, saw more activity in October, started seeing a couple rubs here and there late October where I think they're starting to get a little, frisky. Then you see all the sign, all the scrapes and the rubs and all that jazz.
Yeah.
You see them chasing does around. So now if the rut's over, it's like, do you go back to hunting food? Do you still chase the does around? Do you go out? Do you grunt? Do you bleat?
If the rut's over, it's going to be something completely different, because they're not going to be doing what they were doing in September, October.
Right.
Because they're moving to their winter.
Yeah.
But this is where your late season scouting is going to really help you out.
That's why I do like doing the concept of that. It's like, it's not fun necessarily to trudge around when it's cold, but if you're moving, you're not super freezing. Yeah. That's the closest you're going to find out what those deer are doing this time of year. Is hunting or scouting them right at the end of hunting season. I don't care if I scare them off, because I'm going to have another 12 months before they decide to come back.
Right.
So if I go out there and I can find their bedding and I can find all the trails and I can be like, just track them down and be like, well, this deer was staying right here at one point.
Yeah.
It's like I was hunting 400 yards away. No wonder I was never seeing them. You know what I mean? So it's like now for next year, you find your tree that's at 100 yards from that spot that you think they're bedding. 100 to 200. I personally like trying to stay at 100.
Yeah.
You get 100 yards from that, and if you can, early season, preseason, wherever, at what point that you want to do it, go in there and find the right tree, plan it out accordingly, so that way when you go into there, it's like you're not like not saying you did anything wrong with that spot that you went to. You had to break a bunch of branches.
Yeah.
What was the benefit of breaking all the branches? Like in the sense of like
getting up in the tree.
Yeah, it's like, did you make a hell of a lot of noise and scare everything out of there? So now for the next few hours, we're like, I don't know what it was. There's something over there. I never saw it. Never smell it.
Maybe they would have came in quicker if I just sat on the ground.
Right, but you don't know.
Right.
There's so much you don't know. That's how I feel like when I call. Like if I grunt call or if I use a can. At the end of that hunt, if I don't see anything, I'm like, man, should I have never called?
Yeah, no, I do the same thing.
And I'm telling you right now, I've never called anything in, but I keep freaking doing it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, am I working against myself? I got no idea.
All right, guys, just some housekeeping before we wrap up for today. We are now on YouTube. So Brandon went out and he started a YouTube page for us, and we're both uploading videos. The podcast, for the most part, we're not against doing a solo podcast here and there, but for the most part, it's going to be Brandon and I for a podcast. The YouTube videos are kind of our experiences by ourselves in the woods, so we will at some point definitely hunt together and have a video of that up there. Maybe not this season, but we'll have some stuff out there. But like this hunt that I was talking about today in Zone 15, I've got that posted on the YouTube channel. Brandon right now has a couple clips from hunts from earlier in the year and some of the sign that he was talking about as well in this podcast. So everything that we talk about, some of it at least is going to end up on the YouTube channel. So check that out. Rookie season. The logo is the same as what it is for the podcast. And the podcast itself will also be on YouTube. So if you prefer to listen to your podcast on YouTube, it'll all be up there as soon as it loads up on Spotify. It'll also be uploaded onto the YouTube, so check that out. Subscribe, like the videos. That helps us out a lot, makes it easier for other people to find our content. The podcast. Do us a favor and rate the podcast itself, like the episodes. Again, that brings us up higher and makes us easier for other people to see, so that way we can hopefully continue to grow and you'd be at least able to say that you were one of the first ones,
Exactly. Another thing that we were talking about earlier too is that if you want to, entirely up to you, you can leave a comment, let us know if you're going out on a hunt, if you any success, anything like that, any input. We're always open to input. And if you do get a deer and would like for us to do a little shout out, just you can shoot that onto YouTube, one of our comments or something. You can just let us know that you have a photo that you would like for us to share, and then we can swap some information, and then we could do a shout out and post your picture of you and your deer on the next video or something like that.
Yeah.
We're like we've talked about a couple times, is we're really learning and just wanting to share this with everybody. And so if you have something that you find exciting and fun, we will be getting a Facebook page going before too long, and other types of social medias. You can send us a message on that when that is up, and then that way we can share your story too if you have a little thing that you would like to share. So like Nolan said, like, subscribe, all that fun jazz, all the things that you hear everybody else say on their videos. Please do it on ours as well, because it does help. We don't get paid by it by any means, but it is nice to just. It helps motivate us when we see people who are liking the content.
Nice to know we're not talking in a dead space.
Yeah, and if there's anything that you'd like for us to touch on, if you have anything that you have input on, we would love to talk about it, and we'd love ideas. And we've mentioned it before, we're going to have some guests on here before too long, just to talk about just different stuff, but everything that's going to revolve around hunting, fishing, etc.
Yeah, we've got a lot of sources too. So if you got a question, you throw it in the comments. If we can't answer it, we'll probably be able to find somebody who can answer it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we appreciate you listening. Thank you for tagging in, one more time. This is rookie season, and we hope you have a good day.
See you later.